Hello, welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today's February 8th, 2022. We just missed the 222 thing. And we're back with the news. This is government and security. Yes, government security.
2-2, we didn't miss that. That was Wednesday.
Yeah, we
said that on the news.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Wow, my brain just shut that down. We have orange soda today.
All right, yeah. Orange soda and a truckload of news, because you're not getting a truckload of anything else.
This is a design mistake in the packaging. The can is sideways. The picture of the can is sideways. The cans are correctly oriented, but the picture of the cans makes you think you turn it like this. That is incorrect. This is the correct orientation for the cans. Why would the designer do this?
To make space of... You're not going to print this way because there's a flap. You're maximizing your space.
That's overly practical.
They could have put the illustration on there and then put the can on the front.
But then there would have been a cut through it.
Yeah. To be fair, I kind of don't blame him for wanting to show off the cool illustration instead of the can.
Kind of ridiculous packaging for orange soda.
But why? This is Daredevil orange cream soda. That is clearly Evil Knievel. They just couldn't get the licensing. Crafted with real fruit juice and cane sugar. This comes to us courtesy of the lovely Canadians from last time. So this is this week as promised.
Do you know that there is, I can't remember how long ago it was, but Evil Knievel Jr. was doing the same kind of thing, but his stunts were terrible.
Because he didn't want to die.
You got to want to die to make that work.
But there were guys who wanted to die doing the same thing, doing really impressive stuff, but they couldn't get the press because they weren't Evil Knievel Jr. Does that make you want to die?
No, it's pretty good.
You seem torn on it. You've drank it 3 times and you're like...
It's, well, no, I was mostly smelling it at first. It has a very neutral smell. It, you actually don't get the smell until it hits your mouth and then kind of starts to evaporate. So it's a very strong cream taste and a very subtle orange taste. It's almost just like cream soda with just a tiny pinch of orange zest.
That was processed in the same facility that processes oranges.
Number 2 ingredient is orange juice.
Yeah. It doesn't taste like that at all. It does taste kind of acidic.
Carbonated water, cane sugar. It's quality ingredients.
I can definitely taste the cane sugar, and it's also well-prepared cane sugar. So, like, in Florida, they do this thing where they burn the cane sugar because that's the cheapest way to deal with it, but there are other farms that cut the leaves off. And you can taste the difference in how the cane sugar was prepared, and this seems like this is good cane sugar.
Apparently there's also vegan sugar because apparently some sugar is filtered with like bone char or something like that, and they're like, oh, that's not okay if you're vegan.
What if it's human bones?
Then it's okay.
Okay. So we should start a factory that does that. We'll take your corpses, the unwanted corpses.
Your unwanted corpses.
Make sugar.
Who wants
it? It does have sodium benzoate in it.
Is that a preservative, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also the way that you know this is good stuff. Is the expiration date is July 15th, 2022, which is right around the corner.
Or it could be that's been sitting on the shelf because of a supply chain issue.
It's been in the back of a truck.
Imagine there's just vats and vats and vats. So we don't have the cans. Our supply chain is broke down, and so then when they can,
that's a real concern. There's not enough aluminum.
They got to have a guy that keeps stirring at all times and just keep shifting them out. Don't let it harden.
There was one of the places around here switched one of their lines from aluminum to glass. Like they still had their old glass bottling equipment, so you're getting some stuff in vintage glass bottles because couldn't get the aluminum.
Glass is better anyway.
Yeah, but it's not as cheap.
Yeah,
it's not as cheap,
and it certainly doesn't stand shipping.
It's really weird too because that company also reported that they were doing better profit wise, and it's like, wait a minute. The prices are going up and you're making more profit? That doesn't make sense. Anyway, this episode's sponsored by Linode. We had November. The November finalists are also posted now. I don't know if we get the video out, but we need help matching finalists to prizes, maybe a little bit. You could comment and we'll take your suggestion under advisement.
Yeah.
But what will not be taken under advisement is your opinion on being spied upon. Because from here on out, I believe that we can all assume that we will be spied upon. And the tools in
We
order
already are.
that are used to spy upon us are more and more powerful. And in the highest levels of power, they sometimes decry these tools while secretly purchasing them.
The FBI confirms that it obtained NSO Pegasus software, but it didn't use it. Is this the IT guy equivalent of didn't inhale?
That is a very expensive package. And the story details how they had all these special requirements because the NSO Group, shockingly, spies on the people who buy their spying products. The FBI was very adamant that they not have that capability with the FBI version.
Of course.
And yet, according to the NSO Group, who are completely trustworthy, the FBI never turned it on.
We just like to look at it sometimes. We don't touch it. That's like me with chocolate when I was a kid. I just look at it. I haven't had a piece.
Wait, what?
When I was-
Let's elaborate on that.
You're a kid, like one of my aunts had like a crystal dish with like candies in it. And sometimes she would catch me like opening it and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just looking at it." But I wasn't just looking at it. I was usually eating a piece of chocolate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I thought that you actually were like not eating chocolate as a kid and just looking at it. And I'm like, what?
Well, who does that? No. Yeah, exactly. No one does that.
No one doesn't inhale.
Well, the FBI director has some nasty things to say about a surveillance state. No, not America. Even though what we just told you would make you think
Spider-Man
that,
meme.
but no, it's a different surveillance state. So this is, of course, the Spider-Man meme. If we ever do the chyrons and the pop-ups and everything, we got to do like a little Spider-Man that slowly comes
Yeah.
up.
Points, yeah.
The FBI director has this quote: "No country poses a more severe threat than China." It's like, we just bought the NSO Group stuff from the Israelis. I was like, yeah, no, they're up front with their spying, and they'll let us buy their software so we can look at it and harden it. But China, they won't talk about it. And it's like,
Who do you think is a bigger threat to the average American and not the government?
probably not China.
You think?
I don't know.
'Cause, I mean, they own a lot of social media stuff too, like TikTok.
Here's the thing. Your average person, as far as we know, is not likely to get Pegasus because it's very expensive. You have to be somebody who they care about enough. But as we've seen with all forms of technology, it's going to get easier and easier and cheaper.
Yeah.
So this bedrock is going to ultimately build our prison.
Do you think that if we, as a matter of course in society, desired things that were more robustly architected and a little bit more resilient, that would become a self-solving problem? It's like, oh, well, we were able to Pegasus the phone, but the tools that the average person has in place, they were able to self-audit and detect that. And so now it's just you're fighting against thousands of individual citizens instead of Tim Cook.
But what makes you think? I think people do desire that.
They do, yeah, but we can't have that in the way that things are currently structured.
So what are you going to do about it?
Our next story.
I don't think that's going to fix it. But yeah, this
It's a good
is...
story, though.
It is definitely something
feel good.
something we need, and maybe this is the proper way to do politics, right? Because they took this big umbrella thing that was never going to work because there was just too much in it. There was too much of a chance to derail it, and they said, "All right, we're going to pick one thing.
Yep.
Laser focus this. We're going to fix that one thing, and then maybe next year we'll fix the next thing. Instead of spending 5 years in limbo,
Yeah.
maybe that's the solution."
Senate introduces a bill to allow farmers to fix their own equipment. The legislation is part of the broader right to repair movement opposing repair restrictions. So this talks about a guy who tried to buy a 20-year-old, or successfully bought a 20-year-old farmer, but then he talks about, it's like, well, you know, things are getting really dark and bleak here. And actually, the CNBC article, or the NBC article, doesn't go into enough detail, but slowly over the last few years, John Deere's been doing things like, if you are a repair shop, you must become part of their repair program, and then you're not allowed to do sales. And so only the very largest companies can have separate organizations where this is the repair org company and this is the sales org company, and they do different sales. Little things like that, which are not illegal, have sort of undermined the repair shops, and so they're all gone now. They're all, you know, authorized repair centers, and they have to do things according to a certain manual. So it's really screwing small farmers like this one.
Well, and I think the article said, 77% of farmers said that they had bought old equipment because they're like, it's just not worth risking your entire crop if you have to have a repair done and they're backed up.
This guy went to his mechanic, who he's been working with, you assume, his whole life, and he was like, all right, tell me what model I need so none of this affects it. 95. Yeah. 1995. Also, I love the photo shoot that they did with this
guy. He's just like in his khakis, like hanging out in the field.
And he always has that same look on his face.
He's like, can I smile? And they're like, no.
They need to get the people that did the Chuck Testa commercials out to this guy's stat.
I don't reckon I like John Deere's business policies.
I don't think anyone does.
You know, when I play Farm Simulator, when you play games that have cool equipment like airplanes and cars and stuff, and you're like, oh, yeah, I want to drive a Ferrari. But I look at those John Deere equipment, so I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that on my farm. I'll get one of these European versions. I'm sure they're all that way.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Buy the other brand? Yeah, exactly. But this might be the thin end of the wedge for like the iPhone thing, because what if the thin end of the wedge on the iPhone thing is just, I want to audit the files that are on the flash on my iPhone. Give me a port that'll let me read from the memory that doesn't go through the processor in the iPhone. Seems reasonable.
I think the farmers are a lot more in touch
Yeah.
with their technology than the iPhone users. That's the problem that you have.
Well, and it's also like a security issue if your farmers can't produce enough food for your people.
Yeah, well, they talked about that in the article, and that guy described how sometimes there would be a 2-week wait for a technician.
Right.
2 weeks is death on a farm. So
there's a frost coming on Thursday, and if we harvest today, which is only 2 days early in the growing season, we won't lose anything.
Yeah, so makes sense. And plus, I know that modern tractors are insanely high tech, but do they need to be?
I mean, it probably gives you some stats, but you could just do that yourself if you really wanted. I don't.
Well, last week we talked about the IRS requiring selfies. Yes, the IRS wants your selfies, and apparently that sparked more investigative reporting because it turns out that it doesn't stop there.
It's not just the IRS. The U.S. government wants your selfies as well. A controversial new program uses facial recognition as part of a national effort to verify identities and reduce fraud. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
And we talked about ID.me. That's not the only company. It turns out there are a bunch of companies that are rolling out this kind of thing, and they're all competing, and they're all horrible.
I don't know. Okay, so it's fine if maybe they don't want that at all, but why don't they use the licensing system, which already has a photo?
Because it's already been defrauded to the point that it's effectively broken. You have states like California that are literally selling their entire database to anybody with money, which includes criminals.
But that's not the entire reason why. Driver's licenses are being demonized for political reasons because of the voting stuff. Right. So anything where you would require a driver's license, which is everything, by the way, now has to be called into question for political reasons. Because some people don't have driver's licenses, and they can't get them because they're not legal citizens. But we still want them to be able to do everything.
Well, there's some people, too, who just don't drive. So, I guess that's fair. But you can get a state ID. Why do we want all these private companies
You cannot get a state ID if you are a Mexican citizen.
But there are people. We know some people who don't drive who had to have state IDs.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And plus, if you get too old to drive, there's a good reason for that.
But it's why wouldn't you just use the in-place system instead of hiring a bunch of third-party? That's dumb.
I just told you why.
I know.
It's also hard to prove you're a citizen if you've been chronically homeless.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that bait about them voting and whether or not that's a good idea. Waymo has secrets.
It's the orange soda.
They have a lot of secrets, Waymo does, and they are very, very protective of them. But here's the thing, when you get into the driving business, that data needs to be available for everybody. It's very important, especially the safety data. Critical that we all see the safety data. But Waymo says, I don't think so, bro. And the California DMV seems to be nodding and winking? Is that what you get out of this?
Yeah, that's exactly. Waymo sues the state DMV to keep robotaxi safety details secret. Imagine Ford suing the state DMV to keep the seatbelt safety secret. Does that even make any sense?
Oh, speaking of seatbelts, I forgot to add it because it's new. Did you see the Tesla recall?
No, what was it?
The seatbelt chime doesn't work in any of them.
Oh,
The seatbelt chime. You know there's a function in there somewhere where it's like call chime. Instead of just being an actual, solid state manual switch. No.
I wonder if they're trying to fix it with, the driver-facing camera. It's like the AI. It's like, does it look like they're wearing a seatbelt? No? Okay, well, we need to beep.
and maybe it's one of Elon's weird, I don't think it's cool when it beeps at me. It feels too demanding, so he just told him to cut it.
I want to be free.
Yeah. Our customers want to be free.
I dream about being thrown from a vehicle. So
It's
yeah,
a reoccurring nightmare.
Waymo. Someone did a Freedom of Information. The DMV gave it back to Waymo, and they're like, I don't know. Are there any trade secrets here? They blacked the whole thing out. and so
Redacted.
now the phrase they used in this article was the DMV invited Waymo to sue it. I don't know if that's just the author taking liberty there, but what they then explained is because of the way these lawsuits play out, they've probably got 3 to 5 years. And in 3 to 5 years, no one will care anymore about this.
Yeah.
The industry will have moved completely beyond it.
Or the information will be out there in another way.
Yeah, from all the crashes, all the Waymo crashes. The big tech mergers continue to march along. They tend to, you get a lot of big wins when you announce them, but one after the other, they're getting knocked down. Will this one survive?
The FTC to review Microsoft's $68.7 billion deal to buy Activision Blizzard, a report says. So this is true from day one. There were a lot of headlines, us included, where it was like, oh, they're going to buy. But this was always subject to FTC approval. And I'd say the outlook for that is not great, given who is currently in charge.
The article mentioned that would make Microsoft the third biggest gaming company, and I was like, who's the first two?
Sony and somebody else.
So
Nintendo, maybe? I don't feel like
I
Nintendo's
think
that big anymore.
Nintendo's small compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
Nintendo's dysfunctional and chews off its own arms despite itself.
yeah. The article didn't say who the other two were, and so I was trying to think. Maybe Valve?
Sony's for sure one of them.
Yeah.
Well, the big app store wars rage on, and I don't know that anybody saw this as the eventual ending. I got to think that the tech companies have too much power to allow this.
No, I think this is all about something else.
If the EU could pull this off, my God, would this change the entire world overnight?
Apple and Google could be forced to give up full control of their app stores. So this is the article that talks about both Europe and what's happening with the attorneys general in America, right? Because both of them are looking at it and saying, well, you having full control over your app store seems like a monopoly, and you're going to have to give up some control. Maybe it's a board of directors, or maybe it's industry players come together to control your app store. We're not sure what that looks like, but you should not be able to control the platform. It's a long-winded way of saying you should be able to load applications not through the app store.
This is EU, UK, Japan, 35 attorney generals or attorneys general, and 2 Senate bills.
Yeah.
So this is a big wave of...
It's an international interest.
I don't know that it gets better, though. I mean, an outlaw app store would be a place that spreads a lot of horror.
Yeah.
I mean, we should be free to enjoy that horror if that's what we want. But mobile users are, they're not always very smart.
Pretty much all users are not very smart with managing their technology. It's really terrifying. Oops, I accidentally NSO'd myself.
And when you are being attacked by those app stores and all the evil, horrible people out there who are trying to steal your crypto and your identity and so forth, you might be thinking, well, the U.S. government will take care of me. But no, the U.S. government is busy fulfilling its own ideas about the technological world, which, as you just mentioned, involves gaining control.
The Earn It Act is back in Congress, and this is just, it's terrible. So the Earn It Act, we talked about it in 2020, so it's 2 years ago, And this basically is going to mandate online filtering and, the Apple stuff that everybody was up in arms about, where Apple was going to just automatically filter and flag your images. A couple of days ago, Google rolled out their document filtering thing, where if you have a text file that contains the number 1, it was blocking people's access because it thought that it was, illegal material, but it was actually just bugs in the algorithm, because of course it was just bugs in the algorithm. This will force those kind of things by law under the guise of protecting ourselves. Now, you remember the law that shut down Backpage? It was like certain categories of website would no longer be protected under Section 230, and then those websites they just closed up.
Yeah, and so that's been a while ago. We've seen numbers since then, and we have asked, hey, why don't you prove us that this did anything?
Nothing.
No one can, because no one was even paying attention, because it was never about that.
And Earnit is that, but worse.
Plus, Earnit also folds in the whole 230 thing.
Yeah.
So they're looking to control the online, platforms by saying that they are now liable for what is said on your platform. And if that's the case, you have no choice but to censor overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Why would you ever take a chance?
I really think the Earnit stuff is a cudgel for these governments threatening the App Store control stuff. They're saying, if you don't help us with this is what's coming in terms of antitrust. Because that's usually how these things go. And it's dishonest all the way around.
And if you are a billionaire who is essentially above the law and those two things don't work, I wouldn't put it past them to try this.
U.S. intelligence community report says the pulsed electromagnetic energy thing could explain Havana Syndrome. So this article we had an article a couple of weeks ago that talked about thousands of cases that were whittled down into a few that were unexplainable. This article talks about 200 cases they've whittled down into maybe 15 or 20 that are unexplainable. But one of the explanations is some sort of really high energy pulsed electromagnetic pulse.
I hope that pulsed electromagnetic energy becomes a buzzword in the media in the near future, because its acronym is P.
It's funny because I'm 12.
Oh, or .PEE. To put it in there.
And you know who probably had a lot of PEE in their flight suit is the person who dumped this F-35 off the deck.
I got secondhand anxiety reading this, because I was like, oh, what if I was the person who did this?
Have you seen the video?
No, I didn't see the video. I read the article, but
you don't get to see the actual plane hitting the deck. It's just a guy filming the plane coming in, and you're like, "Ooh, that angle
doesn't
looks
seem
wrong.
right."
That doesn't seem right." And it's like, thump,
Ooh.
splash.
F-35C fighter jet. The race is on to reach a sunken U.S. plane before China. There's an official comment from Chinese representatives in this article, which was, huh?
They were like, we are not interested in this aircraft. And that was all it said.
They're so interested in the aircraft. So the big thing at stake here is the internal communication system. These things are so tied in. I think the idea here, and with a lot of the modern military, is because we have so much telemetry and cameras and everything, the commanders are kind of like real-time strategying the battlefield now. So this thing is constantly feeding back and taking in input from other places, and there might be some encryption keys in there. But you're going to lose one of those eventually, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they lose it? Was it right off the coast of China? Or was it technically in international water? I can't remember.
No, I think it's because they're out there in those Chinese waters,
Yeah, they could technically take it, yeah.
A lot of these things are supposed to have self-destruct things where you hit the button and it, deploys thermite, and then all of that's destroyed.
I don't think this has... It is carrying missiles, probably.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? The black box, they suspect, has less than, I think, 7 days of battery. The rescue ship is scheduled to get there in 10.
Wow.
It's cutting it close.
It's going to be a difficult... That's like hitting a golf ball into the pond.
How do you feel if you're the guy who crashed that? I mean, you're probably not feeling good anyway because you've just been in a crash, but...
Yeah, I think it was ruled pilot error. Ooh. So you're probably never getting another expensive plane.
Clean an aircraft carrier with a toothbrush.
With your tongue.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boilersnake, he was actually dishonorably discharged from the Navy flight program, and he doesn't like to talk about it.
They should have never put him in a plane. He has no hands.
I don't know what they were thinking.
He blames it on a malfunctioning valve.
They couldn't even get a parachute to stay on him. They just slide right off.
He's lucky he didn't die when he fell out of that airplane.
Well, Ohio got the big fab plant. Actually, it's going to be 2 of them.
Some people were upset about your comments about Ohio last week.
What did I say about Ohio?
You were joking that this was like the biggest thing that had ever happened to Ohio, and some guy was like, actually, we had a lot of manufacturing.
I said Columbus.
Yeah.
And tell me one thing more important than this ever happened to Columbus.
There was one comment that was useful that talked about a Chinese company that bought a glass manufacturing plant, or a factory, and they turned it into a glass manufacturing plant. That was actually fascinating.
Well, they're getting it, or at least we think they are. But the question is, why Columbus, Ohio? Again, there's nothing there, really.
The Associated Press brings us our answer.
And we're going to get the answer.
Ohio lured Intel's chip plant with a $2 billion incentive package. Also, another useful nugget from this article, 40 states were considered for the location of this. So that probably included us.
And then they were like, ugh, what's in Kentucky?
The interstate.
Well, there's bourbon and horses, too, if you're rich.
Too bad the silicon fabrication process doesn't run on bourbon.
Or horsepower. I like to think in this picture, he's like, I just farted, don't react. It's really bad.
They really picked kind of a shady photo for this article.
It's got a real sulfur smell to it, but don't tell anybody. And the EU regulators are merciless. Are those chocolate chip cookies?
Looks
They
like
are. What a cool photo.
Why? But they are merciless when it comes to the big tech companies. They're doing way more than our government is, and they are bleeding them dry. And just week after week, they're like, yep, you kept doing stuff wrong. They're not. It's true.
Yeah.
They are doing stuff wrong.
Regulators find Europe's ad tech industry acted unlawfully. This has to do with the cookie consent pop-up banners. It turns out that it's like, no, I guess this is, again, okay on a technicality, but actually against the EU law. This is another level 1 prediction. Remember we said this is a technicality, and the technical people think that because they're skirting a loophole here, but that's not how it works.
This was made by Mixmagic on Getty Images. Do you think this was made for this topic, or did somebody just make this?
It's cookies, like they're making a joke, like cookies, like browser cookies.
Yeah,
Right, but they got it
flag.
from Getty Images. What I'm saying is, did whoever made that, did they do it because of the EU browser cookie issue?
There's probably been enough tech stories about the EU that they were like, this will be used eventually.
Probably somebody just sat down and was like, we need a picture for this, and they typed in cookies and EU, and that was the first result.
Yeah, but it begs the question of why you made that originally.
Oh, as someone who has to look at stock photos a lot, you'd be surprised what you could find. The most obscure things imaginable.
You know the old guy with like the expression?
Yeah, hide the pain, Harold.
Somebody made a face mask that's his.
Oh,
It's horrific.
He has his own TED Talk, which is actually pretty good.
yeah, I think, hasn't he kind of embraced his internet
Yeah.
fame? He's like, okay.
But it's not a real TED Talk, right? There's so many splinter TED Talks that's you can't
TEDx is
even,
the
TEDx
like
is
smaller ones.
nonsense. Why waste your time? Well, the EU is, they're going after the big tech companies, but the real problem with big tech when it comes to EU is they don't have any of it. They've got a couple of little ones, and they're doing everything they can to keep our companies from buying them. So that is why they are really worried about the future of that.
The EU has drafted a counteroffensive to both the US and China on technology rules. So this has to do with fabrication, availability of technology, sanctions, etc., etc. It reads really good, but it seems like it's just political insanity.
Yeah, they didn't lay out a lot of distinct steps.
No.
They basically just said, the U.S. and China have a lot of technology, and we don't, and we're worried about that. As you should be.
Are you going to do anything? We'll talk about that at some other press conference.
Well, they are going to do one thing, Krista.
They don't even have an arm anymore.
This is, I think this is going to be every big tech deal that involves a European company is going to hit this wall from now on.
Yes. Germany has scuttled its $5 billion chip deal with Taiwan firm amid tech sovereignty concerns. That's the headline, but you read it, and it seems like Germany just didn't get their paperwork in time.
Yeah, it seems like this could still happen. But they had some press releases, and they were talking about being really upset about it. The Chinese government was also involved here, really dragging their feet on their approval.
This is also GlobalWafers. It's like Taiwan firms. Like, is that TSMC? No. GlobalWafers.
So but China gets a say in the Taiwan thing?
Well, It's complicated. I don't know what the particulars are of that, but one time when I went to Taiwan, I actually accidentally got a cell phone on the wrong carrier. It was like, this carrier is for Chinese people visiting Taiwan. This carrier is for Taiwanese citizens, and it's just sort of understood. I didn't understand.
You're neither of those things.
Is that like just a cultural thing, or is that actually like a codified in law or something?
One of the cell phones data plan was behind the Great Firewall of China. The other one, not so much.
Oh.
But I bet if you look Asian, you can't get the other one, right?
No. If you're
You just have to show your ID, right?
yeah, and it's like, oh, you're a Taiwanese citizen, you get this one.
Oh, so they're doing that to protect themselves when they go back. I got you. Wow. Talk about being... And I'm not, so no disrespect. I understand. I might probably do it too.
Happy Chinese New Year.
But having the boot on your neck so hard that you're like, oh, no. Don't give me the Freedom Phone. For the love of God, don't give me the Freedom Phone.
Give me the Chinese spyware phone.
Happy Lunar New Year, I guess, in that case, as the case may be.
And El Salvador, they are doing the big Bitcoin experiment.
I chuckled at this.
They get a lot. When this first started, a lot of big names and governments and stuff came out and they were like, they're being silly. That's never going to work. They should not do that. Now that they've done it, the rhetoric has been amped up a bit.
El Salvador angrily rejects the IMF call to drop Bitcoin use. They actually came right out and said, look, we're trying to get $1.3 billion from the IMF. We have all this real collateral to back that up. But we are not dropping Bitcoin. We're not going to alter our terms with Bitcoin. And if you're making this $1.3 billion loan contingent on us dropping Bitcoin, be honest about that and come out and say that. And they didn't do that.
Jeff Bezos should step in and loan them that money.
Yes.
It's funny because he could.
There's a lot of Bitcoin whales that could probably loan them the money too.
He'd have to sell assets, though. He would destroy the market by liquidating.
The one of the Winklevi could...
They'd have to destroy the Bitcoin market.
Couldn't Bezos just sell his mega yacht?
Lease it out, Airbnb it for a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
I don't think it's worth $1 billion. It might be worth $500 million.
I can't remember if we put this in the stories or not, but didn't they have like the shipyard where it was built?
Yes.
It's so
we do
big.
have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. I won't talk about it.
In Israel, they have a bit of an issue once in a while with rockets and other ordnance falling from the sky, and they have a lot of interesting and very technologically advanced ways of dealing with that, but they're all very, very expensive. Even those interceptor rockets, every one you fire costs a ton of money, but you know what's super cheap? Lasers.
Israel's laser missile defense system really is a new Star Wars, according to this analysis. So if you read the white paper on this thing, it's really awesome. Finally, it can shoot things down through cloud cover. It can shoot things down through atmospheric interference. It's a laser that will track even hyperballistic missiles or hypersonic ballistic missiles, so many times the speed of sound. It does everything. If you have enough of these, a country's air force no longer matters.
So they are going to put them on the southern border. They've got 4 or 6 of them or something like that, but they are immediately building more. They say, yes, we must ring the country in these things because they're saying that Iran is trying to kill them. And India, a lot of companies are taking an anti-crypto stance. Of course, we've got Russia and China leading the way there, but India is taking a much different approach, probably a better approach for the people.
India proposes a 30% tax on crypto and NFT income. Further, this income would be exempt from all forms of deductions. So you couldn't deduct, say, buying a bunch of mining equipment. And it seems pretty hardened against loopholes where you would take your crypto and then export it into the local Indian currency and then convert it back to something else. But it does seem like there's an exception for Bitcoin. So if you're a Bitcoin holder, you don't have to pay capital gains, I guess the equivalent of what we would call capital gains.
Wait, even if you sell it?
That's what it's for, just as long as you didn't convert it into a local currency, yes. You only pay the tax when you do the local currency conversion.
Right, when you exchange it. Well, that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, our government wants the tax held everything. Our government wants unrealized profits taxed next.
Yeah.
Which means you could pay taxes and never get the money. You lose the money. You didn't actually earn any money. That's coming. We'll have that.
They'll probably do that on 401ks first because there's no other. Like,
So we don't get Social Security or our 401k?
no, they'll find a way to rate it.
Well, moving on to security, we've learned recently that there was a zero-click iPhone exploit. There was an iPhone exploit that you really couldn't do much about. No one knew about it. It was brand new in the world. It was proven to have been used several times by the NSO Group, but horrible new news, not just them.
Reuters reports that zero-click exploit was also used by another Israeli surveillance firm in addition to NSO Group. So there's a good bet that several people around the world in various such groups have also used that exploit.
If you recall, Apple sued NSO Group because of this thing, because they were saying, hey, you're hurting our product by hurting our users and, exploiting it. So now, are we going to find out in some kind of court discovery exactly how many companies have this? That'd be nice to know, wouldn't it?
We're going to find a lower bound that's going to be disturbingly high.
Now, you might be thinking, well, the NSO Group, they have a right to do that. They're not bad people. They're just, it's a new wave of technology and you're afraid of it because you don't understand it, but it's going to make the world a better place. They're following the law. Are they?
NSO offered a U.S. mobile security firm, quote-unquote, bags of cash, a whistleblower has claimed. The spyware firm denies doing business with Mobilium, and co-founder has no reconciliation of using the phrase. Oh.
I like how explicit, just bags of cash. It's not even subtle.
So this company had, a way into the entire mobile network. They were like deep into it somewhere, and then NSO was like, "We want to be part of that," and they were told, "No, why would we do that?" Answer, of course, bags of cash. Which makes me very confident, in fact, that the NSO Group has hit a lot of obstacles that bags of cash solved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the war on free information in terms of academics. My God, if the last 2 years has taught us anything, it's that this information needs to be public. 100%. I don't care about your trade secrets. It's academic. It's research-based. Everybody should have access to it. But my God, do they fight it.
Academic journal claims that Fingerprints PDFs for quote-unquote ransomware, not surveillance. And I'll take nonsensical answers for 200, Alex.
Can you think of any series of events where you get ransomware and having hashed PDFs helps you?
No. So just to make it clear, what they're doing is you get a PDF, you download a PDF from them, and it puts something in the PDF that is uniquely tied to your account. So if that PDF shows up, like if your grad student takes that and then posts that on the Pirate Bay, it's linked to your account.
I don't want to click away to Twitter, but you can see here. So this guy bought PDFs different times with the same account and noted that the hash changed. So they were tracking the individual document, not even the user, but the individual document. And that timestamp and hash, they could go back to their server and not only check the user account, but the IP address of who did that.
Yeah.
So
This is
clearly
the first NFT?
They said, could you please explain to us how this would be useful in a ransomware environment? And he responded with an email that was just links to news stories about ransomware.
You might as well just responded, no, period. No heart emoji.
Did you guys watch that White House press briefing about the false flag in Ukraine? Mm-hmm. This guy was like, all right, there's a video. We're aware that there's going to be a video coming out that shows a false flag attack in Ukraine with crisis actors. The Russians are going to release it, and they're going to use that as a pretext to invade Ukraine. And the reporter was like, wait, what? Can you tell us more about that? And I was like, I just told you about it. I was like, no, I'm looking for some kind of proof. You're just telling me this. There's no evidence. He's like, oh, you don't trust the government? You trust the Russians? Like, he got real in his
weird,
face.
yeah.
I was like, well, that's the same thing
Got a
here.
couple screen grabs from this video. I mean, something.
So we can know what it looks like?
Could you link me to the IMDb page for this film?
Where's the Wikipedia? Citation needed.
We've learned recently that a lot of people are using AirTags for interesting reasons. Did we do the moving story? We did that one,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where the woman put AirTags in her moving boxes to prove that the moving company was lying to her.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have, remember the AirTag of the woman in, was it Germany?
Yep.
Mailed it to the secret police.
Oh,
and
yeah, and
out
found
where
the
they
new
are.
agency. Yeah.
So AirTags are a crazy new tool, but it can be used against you as well. They do have a security feature, but it turns out not very robust.
Silenced AirTags with disabled speakers are popping up for sale online. So you can go on eBay and buy an AirTag where when you activate it, it'll beep to help you find it, but you can disable the beeping.
I think there was one that was on Etsy, and I was like, Etsy? Like the craft store?
It does another thing too. I don't exactly understand exactly how it works, but if, safety feature that will alert someone to the presence of an AirTag that's not their own. So if one of those movers had an iPhone and he was paying attention, he could have been like, wait a minute, there's an AirTag here. Every time I walk past this box,
It beeps, yeah.
But now these will not beep because they've been disabled. Apple's going to use that as an excuse to do something terrible.
I mean, it's a kind of amazing way to do GPS tracking without even having any kind of GPS receiver or cellular signal or anything. It's crazy.
Well, another week, another blockchain platform has fallen.
And come back.
It just happens over and over. And this really, remember when we talked about, the FBI and everybody comes out and they're like, don't pay the ransom. This is worse than paying a ransom.
Blockchain platform Wormhole says that it's retrieved the $324 million stolen by hackers.
How do they do it? They paid a bug bounty. A bug bounty. So they went to this, whoever this person was, and they said, listen, $234 million, you're never going to clear it. You're never going to clean it. We'll give you 10, just give it back. And they said, all right, I'll do that. I hope that's some kind of secret sting operation. This one is, I read this and I was like, wow, they're really.
The EU's not screwing around.
Yeah, they are not screwing around. But then you see the amount.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well.
Maybe they are screwing around.
I guess you would, if you had to do that every week or every day, you would go ahead and fix it.
Yeah.
But it's so small.
Website fined by German court for leaking a visitor's IP address via Google Fonts. So this was a web page that embedded Google Fonts. And because Google could theoretically record your IP address.
Theoretically?
No, that's the article. That was like, you don't have to show proof that they recorded your IP address. It's just.
No, but I mean, they are.
Well,
we know that they are.
They were fined $100. But it could balloon up to $150,000 if the website operator doesn't take steps to correct this immediately.
I bet all the users of that website are like, oh, a slightly different font, and they just leave immediately.
Oh, you might be surprised.
Well, Google will actually let you download and embed the font directly. It's fairly permissive licensing. It's usually just more convenient to do the embed.
Yeah.
I also get the CDN aspect of it. It comes from a content delivery network, so you're not downloading the same font over and over again.
We love downloading the same font over and over again.
Apparently Germany does.
And some crimes, they're brilliant. They come up with these crazy ways to steal things and all these NFT attacks. And sometimes it's just really like, how did you think you were going to get away with this? You have a logistics system that is maybe the best on earth, and they're never going to notice this?
Amazon warehouse manager pleads guilty to stealing $273,000 worth of computer parts. It honestly seemed like more work than it was worth. Because he was just like, oh, let's do this, and then cover this up, and then do this other thing. And it's like, oops, we shipped them an empty box.
Shipped them all to his home, which, mistake
ballsy.
number 2.
Yeah.
And then instead of, fencing them out one at a time, wholesale gave them to another computer company.
Mm.
Wow.
Kind of dumb.
Won't be seeing him anymore, especially at the Amazon warehouse. You know what? What's going to be funny is in 25 years or 10 years, when Amazon starts using prison labor, he'll be back to work for Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah.
And perhaps the darkest story, it's not the darkest story of the week, but it's terrible because it shows the gross opportunism that Americans will display during a crisis.
Beware fake sites for testing for the thing. There have been a lot of stories where in a lot of cities, these pop-up testing facilities show up and there's, they seem legit. People are doing stuff and they're out the door. And a lot of the time you don't have to give them a lot of info. You can just give them like your name and address, or maybe your name and address and social security number, as this article points out. But the scam was that if you get enough information to identify an individual, you can bill the government for testing, but you never actually have to return the tests to the individual person. And so if you collect the information from a whole bunch of people and you get them to sign some paperwork, the government will reimburse you for testing for the thing, even if you didn't really do any testing, even if you didn't follow storage protocols, even if you didn't really, have any intention of actually doing anything to be helpful.
When I saw this headline, I was imagining it was just someone who really likes swabbing people's noses.
Well, they pointed out that not only are some of these completely fake. Remember the story we did about the one where it was a husband and wife?
Yeah.
And they invented it all, fabricated it from the ground up. Now, they got caught. They're going to do some jail time, most likely. But they said in some of these situations, it wasn't that. It was a legit site. And someone would just creep in and start taking people's information, just stealing information.
Wow.
So watch out, I guess. They do instruct you of different places you can go and try to vet them. I don't know how good that is.
You just got four free tests. That was hard to say.
Did you? I never got mine.
I haven't gotten mine yet, but I signed up for them.
That's been a month ago.
Was that a month ago?
Yeah.
Good grief. I signed my mom up for it, and my mom tried to sign up for it, and then she got like a thing that was like, someone else has already signed you up, and it really puzzled her.
She's gonna be jailed for fraud.
My daughter did it. They're like,
meanwhile,
nope.
These will get a community award for innovative entrepreneurial something.
Oh yeah, they'll get more tax money.
What a world.
It's really horrifying. Yay, capitalism.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.